Who doesn't love a good burger? In all honesty, we don't cook them half as much as we should. We find they're a little bit too predictable, just throwing a burger onto the fire, but these are just too tasty not to share with you guys.
This series is all about wild seasonal ingredients and the rich smoky flavours that fire can bring to your cooking.
We want to reintroduce you guys into the art of cooking in the great outdoors, using forgotten ingredients, mouth-watering recipes to create a true feast over fire. This is Fire, Smoke and Iron.
So wild garlic is a huge player in our kitchen. It is so versatile with its really light, gentle, garlicky hum. It's absolutely delicious, and we've found that you can pretty much use it in every dish you can find. So all parts of wild garlic are edible. At the beginning of the season, we like to use the leaves, and then as the season develops, you can pick the flower scapes, which are fantastic for pickling or just eating fresh. As the flowers bud, the flowers are beautiful and they're equally as delicious. And then later in the year, when the flower goes to seed, we pick these seeds, pop them into a jar, pickle them and turn them into wild garlic seed capers. And this means that we can enjoy wild garlic all throughout the year. So you'll often find it carpeting the woodland floor like here. The easiest way to identify wild garlic is picking it, scrunching it up and having a sniff, and you should get a really strong garlicky flavour. We always say, if in doubt, leave it out. You need to be absolutely sure that you know what you are picking and eating, because there's so much that's poisonous out there. One of the things that can easily be confused with wild garlic is something called lords and ladies. It grows where wild garlic grows, and when it's young particularly, it's quite difficult to identify between the young leaves. So foraging is legal in the UK, but always be sure to only pick what you can consume. We don't want any of it going to waste, and we want to leave plenty for our ecosystems and the birds and the bees throughout the spring.
Today, we're going to be tackling a barbecue classic, the burger. We're going to be creating a venison smash burger using locally sourced fallow deer. Fallow is a delicious, rich meat. Speak to your local butcher and he can point you in the right direction of where you can get it from. So before we do anything, we need to get our fire started. We're going to start off with a nice dry bundle of hay or dry grass, a couple of small squares of char cloth, and these is what's going to catch our spark. We're going to create sparks using our flint and steel or the ferro rod, and just create a little shower of sparks, and that's just going to smoulder away, and we're going to put that inside our tinder bundle. So we know that when our fire is about to combust or our hay is about to combust, this smoke is going to get thicker and thicker. Once we've got our flames, we're just going to gently put our small secondary fuel and sticks on top, trying not to squash any of the fire. We're going to then go on with our sort of kindling or tertiary fuel. And these smaller bits we can just crisscross on top. And once that fire's built up again and consume the kindling, we'll then go on with thicker logs. And this is what we'll fuel our fire with from now on. And we're just going to let it build up nice and gradually. The sort of urge is to always smother it, and that's the worst thing to do. You don't want to squash all that oxygen out. You want a nice flow consistently all the way through. As with all of our ingredients and products, it's really important to source everything as locally, as sustainably as possible, and that goes for wood too. We're using logs from a brilliant company called Kindwood, whose approach to sustainable log production is first class. We've dropped a little discount code in the description below for you guys to use. So before we get into making our burgers, we're just going to make a wild garlic pesto. And to do that, we're just going to throw a grill rack onto the fire, and we're going to toast some hazelnuts. So we can throw our hazelnuts straight in. We don't need to warm our pan up or anything like that, and they can toast away for a few minutes. Whilst the hazelnuts toast away, we're going to prepare our wild garlic that Becky picked for us earlier. We're going to be using a pestle and mortar, as we don't have electricity up here, so we're going to do it the old-fashioned way and grind it under stone. To make it slightly easier on the pestle and mortar, we're just going to give our wild garlic a nice fine chop through. So our hazelnuts are nice and golden. We've got a few little dark spots, so we're just going to take them off and we're going to give them a light bash with the pestle. Pesto's sort of a preference thing. Some people like it chunkier, some people like it smoother. We're going to go a little bit in the middle. A good pinch of salt, and then we're going to add in our Parmesan too. Make sure everything's nice and mixed well. And now we can add in our wild garlic. And then we're just going to continue and mix everything together. Once it's started breaking down, we can add in some rapeseed oil. And this is just going to bring everything together. So this is slightly drier than a normal pesto you make at home, but we're using this almost like a relish. So we want it to sit nicely on top of our burger without kind of slipping off the top. But this is perfect. Now you can put this into a sterilized jar and it should last for a good week or two, covered with a fine layer of oil. So we're just going to put that to the side now and we're going to crack on with our burger. So venison's a wonderful meat to work with. We get it really locally from a stalker who lives just down the road. This time of year it's a little bit leaner than when it's carrying a bit more fat during the winter months. So we're going to add a little bit of beef fat in, and that's just going to make sure that the mince stays super moist and the burgers are just really nice and unctuous to eat. We're just going to give this a nice light mix. We don't want to sort of break down anything too much. We want everything to be nice and mixed together. So we're using an 80-20 ratio. So that's 80% venison meat and 20% beef fat. The beef fat you can get from your local butcher, nice and easily. And if you can get it trimmed off some nice aged beef, all the better for extra flavour. But otherwise, the fat will be fine on its own. So that's it for our burger mince. We've got our fat all nicely mixed in to the venison, and we're going to form these into balls ready for the grill. All the seasoning is going to happen as we cook it. This mix makes 8 single burgers, or if you wanted to double them up, it's going to be 4. But we're going to make 8 nice tight balls, as even as you can get them. So the reason we're making these into balls and not flat burgers is because these are smash burgers, and that means we're going to smash. To be honest, it's more of a squash than a smash, but that's going to create lots of surface area and contact with the hot griddle plate and form this really nice crust on the bottom. So to cook our burgers, we're going to be using this really nice big piece of steel. If you're at home and you don't have something that big, you can use a large skillet or one of those big rectangular grill pans, that's fine, but make sure it's nice and flat. You don't want to be squashing into something that's ridged because it might stick and then it will just tear as you take it or try and turn the burger later on. So we've got our fire nice and evenly scratched out underneath, and that's just going to create a really nice, consistently hot heat throughout the pan. We're just going to add a little drizzle of rapeseed oil onto it, and that's going to help the burgers to not stick to the pan. So we're just going to do 4 to start with, and give them a nice amount of space, because we've got to squash them yet as well. So we're going to take 2 spatulas on top of each other and press down from the top, and that's going to squash our burger into the skillet and create a really nice crust. And we're going to do that with all 4. And then now they're squashed, we're going to start seasoning them. So we're going to add a good pinch of salt. And then the pastrami mix. Nice and liberal. Whilst they're cooking on their first side, we're just going to take the bottom buns and we're going to toast them nice and lightly over the grill. So our burger's ready to flip now. They've been on for 4 or 5 minutes, so we're going to go ahead and give them a flip. We're going to give them another season with salt and the pastrami spice mix. To the top of each burger, we're going to add our wild garlic pesto as our next layer of flavour. So we're just going to add a tablespoon or so to the top of each. And then we're going to top each of those burgers with some shredded mozzarella. And this is going to melt and become super gooey. Now, as these burgers finish cooking through, you'll notice that I haven't toasted the top bun. We're going to steam these in a couple of minutes once the burgers have just finished cooking through with a really nice local beer called Crumbs Ale. So this is made using surplus bread from another local bakery, and they turn it into the most incredible beer. But we're going to use that to inject loads of steam, and we're going to cover it with a cloche, and everything is going to meld into one lovely flavour. So our cheese has just started to melt, and it's all the bits that have melted around the edges are getting nice and crispy. But you'll notice that the top hasn't melted yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to add our top buns. And then we're going to add in our beer, and we're going to use a cloche to catch the steam. So if you don't have a cloche at home, you can use an upturned saucepan. And if you have a kettle barbecue, just shut the lid when you add your beer. So we're going to add it straight into the middle and cover it instantly with the cloche. And that cloche just catches the steam. It's going to make the bun super nice and soft, and the cheese is just going to finish melting through. So whilst that cheese melts, we've got some burger toppers. We've got some really nice pink pickled onions, pickled with lime juice and red wine vinegar. If you weren't using these and you still wanted that oniony flavour, then you can thinly slice a red onion, and just after you've squashed your burgers, and before flipping them, you can add them and they'll caramelise in the pan as you cook. And then we've got some charred pickled chilies as well. So these are charred over the fire and then put into a simple pickling liquor of vinegar, water, salt and sugar. So we've had the burgers covered for a minute or two now. We're just gonna have a little peek underneath the buns and see how the cheese is getting on. We want it to be nice and melted and gooey. So we're just gonna lift it quickly, and just another minute or so, and then we'll be there. So the amount of pickles you load into your burger is all down to preference and taste. And then with the chilies, we're just gonna give them a rough chop. We're just going to divide between our buns. So our burgers now should be perfectly cooked. We're just going to use a thermopen to check them because we don't want them to be under. And we're looking for a temperature of around 70 degrees. The likelihood is it'll be a little bit over, but we just want to make sure it's not under. And then now we can use our spatula, and we're going to transfer our burgers along with all the crispy cheese. Here we go, guys, the new king of the barbecue. This is our wild venison smash burgers. I hope you all enjoyed today's episode. If you get the chance to recreate this yourselves at home for your friends and family, then please do share it with us on social media. We'd love to see what you guys create over the fire. If you like what you've seen today, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Next week, we'll be cooking up a soul-warming batch of pea and nettle fritters.